Well, Kamala Harris is now the outright favourite to win the US election in November. Joining me live is political consultant Aidan Smith. Aidan, a pronounced favourite, and when I say that, the bookmakers have got Kamala Harris at shortening odds.
Definitely. I mean, I've been on the program and had the pleasure to be so for like the last few years. And I'm sure that you remember, I've been pretty bullish on Trump winning just in general, even when polls showed a year ago much tighter than it did a few months ago with Trump versus Biden, was still just had the general feeling that Trump would emerge probably victorious against Biden. But things have just completely flipped in a way that almost, I'm not the first one to say this, but in a way that even the most optimistic of Democrats couldn't have believed. The fact that the Harris switch has had such a pronounced positive effect in polling is something that I think has given a lot of people on both sides whiplash, honestly.
And if you look at the Republican side, it looks really like it's spiralling at the moment, and they're going to find it hard to stop.
Definitely. I mean, I think with, you even see with this the J.D. Vance choice as vice president, one of the last major things by the Trump campaign prior to Biden dropping out. That was really seen as a show of strength by most observers, someone who was really seen as someone, a VP choice, not per se to appeal to the middle ground or swing voters, but someone that you would make if you're in a pretty comfortable position as is. And when you see Biden leave the race pretty shortly after, a lot of criticism even among Republicans privately or not so privately, people who wish that someone like Marco Rubio or Haley was VP to shore up some of the swing voters. I think the Democrats definitely shouldn't get complacent. Obviously, polling can go massively wrong for a party. And I think it probably is uncomfortably close, even in states like Wisconsin, polling-wise for Democrats. But yeah, as it stands, I think the bookkeepers are pretty much correct on this one, that Harris looks like a clear favorite.
But can you try to explain to me, we'll have a look at this vision again, but Donald Trump standing in front of a whole lot of grocery goods, even by his standards, it seems a little bit off the wall.
Yeah, definitely, kind of harkens back to, I think it was 2019, 2020. There was a photo shoot of Trump in the White House after, I believe, the Super Bowl, inviting a bunch of athletes, and it included a bunch of, I believe, McDonald's cartons for, burgers and whatnot. This is, I think I've kind of seen on social media some comparisons aesthetically. Yeah, I think it's something where Trump is someone who has obviously a lot of confidence, both in his own life and especially after being an upset victor in 2016. But I definitely think we're seeing privately, and in terms of what Trump has expressed, even about Vance, it does seem that Trump's own mood about the campaign has definitely gotten more pessimistic since Biden left, though obviously that could end up being in his favor, since complacency is not good for any campaign to have. But yeah, the mood has definitely shifted massively.
Yeah, and J.D. Vance, really, if you look at it, hasn't helped things, has he, with historical comments and now the attack on Tim Walz's service record. It's a really dangerous line to take.
Definitely. And I think just like even outside of politics, Walz is someone who just in terms of character just seems like a very, very normal, non-ideological, kind of moderate middle ground guy, really, strong Minnesota accent, seems pretty affable, and kind of has like his persona really does seem to match like his public character. And I've heard really nothing but really good things about him since being chosen as VP. In terms of Mr. Vance, all I would really say is that when it comes to making a VP pick, the most successful VP pick is someone that no one really talks about. If you're going to have negative headlines at the degree we've seen since he was chosen, since he was picked as, the VP nominee, that's unfortunate for any campaign. The ideal thing is just for the VP candidate to do no harm. It's obviously really early on, but the Trump campaign's definitely been frustrated by the amount of negative coverage about Vance's comments on abortion, childless people, and whatnot.
What about the US economy? It's still going to be a pivotal subject when it comes to the US election, which is in early November. Everyone says, oh, it's still a long way to go. Well, it's actually not that long to go now. We're beyond, beyond 3 months, and that's not long in politics.
Definitely. I think in terms of, I especially think in terms of like economic commentators or actual economists versus the general public, things like really positive indicators like year-over-year inflation being low, and I think it has been since about late 2022-ish. Unfortunately, for a lot of people who conceptualize inflation in like years long as opposed to annual terms, the fact that prices are higher than they were in 2019 pre-COVID still is something that will bother a lot of voters. And that creates the perception that there's still rampant inflation when that's mostly eased, especially on something like gas prices, which peaked in 2022. I think if things stay steady, and I think that the Fed is, compared to 2 years ago when you had a lot of people, even on the left, kind of warn that increased rate hikes would lead to a potential recession. I think kind of people are just expecting the Fed to kind of steer the ship, and I think there's less concern over that. But obviously, if there's some kind of geopolitical crisis, for instance, especially in the Middle East, in addition to the obvious humanitarian catastrophe that would pose, that could also have a huge impact on the global economy, global markets, and obviously the election.
Yeah, it's been a fascinating time in the US, and it's only going to become more interesting as the days and weeks roll out. Good to talk to you, Aidan.